The session opens. We pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be good for our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councilor Mercier. Will you please honor our nation's flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilor Martin.
Here.
Councilor Mendonça.
Here.
Councilor Mercier.
Here.
Mayor Murphy.
Here.
Councilor Nguyen.
Here.
Councilor Broderick.
Here.
Councilor Elliott.
Here.
Councilor Kennedy.
Here.
Councilor Laurie.
Here. Under the city clerk's portion of the agenda, we have the minutes of January 24th for acceptance.
So moved.
So moved by Councilor Mercier, seconded by Councilor Noon. Councilor Mendonça.
If I could request an amendment on the first page under unfinished business, following the motion to suspend the rules, it states that Mr. Green spoke on the matter. If we could just add a sentence that Mr. O'Keefe also spoke on the matter.
Sure. Thank you, Councilor Mendonça. Motion to accept the minutes as amended.
Yeah, so moved.
By Councilor Mercier, seconded by Councilor Noon. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Oppose? So voted. I now entertain a motion to suspend the rules to take up Councilor Mercier's motion by Councilor Noon, seconded by Councilor Mendonça. In City Council, request city manager have new city treasurer come before and meet with the council in public and have future department heads do as well. Seconded by Councilor Mendonça.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to my colleagues for suspending the rules. Other than that, Elizabeth Caraviero would be here till like 9 o'clock tonight, and I think that's very unfair. So thank you for doing that, because my motion is only to let the public as well as ourselves know who our treasurer is, the different department heads, the new hires in the special departments, probably the assistants as well. I'm not saying that the clerk, that the head, the clerk, when the parking department come before us or anything like that, but I think the public would like to meet those department heads. They have a very big responsibility, such as the treasurer's office. That's a big one right there. So it gives me great pleasure to present to my colleagues as well as the viewing public our relatively new city treasurer, and her name is Elizabeth Caraviero, which we call her Liz. So I'd like her to come up to the podium and just to be introduced and say a few words. Welcome to the city of Lowell and to the city hall.
I'll just recognize the city manager. Mr. Manager.
If I could, thank you, Councilor, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for recognizing me. And I think this is a great motion. We did want to make sure that, as I said, jokingly said before, we wanted to make sure that Liz stayed on the job for a good month before we called her in. We've been having some problems with treasurers here, but Liz comes to us from the city of Somerville, where she served as the city collector and treasurer, so we stole her away from Mayor Curtatone. And before that, she was with the town of North Reading, and then had some private sector work, and before that, she was the assistant treasurer and acting treasurer in the town of Middleton. So she comes with considerable municipal experience. She's already made a mark downstairs. She's gotten right in and helped us with a number of issues, including getting the tax bills out, which was a first issue that she had to deal with. But She's certainly shown herself to be one that we're ready to work with, and I think she's going to do a wonderful job, and I appreciate the opportunity to bring her in tonight to meet the council, and I think bringing the other department heads in is a great idea as well, and one certainly we like to do, and show off the talent that we're able to bring to the city. So perhaps Liz wants to say a few words, I'm not sure.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch. I just want to thank the council members for asking me to come in to meet you and also the residents of this city. I'm going to enjoy working here. I already am. I'm, as Mr. Lynch has said, that trying to make my mark, but I'm trying to do it quietly and peacefully, and just to make sure that everything runs smoothly down in the treasurer's office, and we are making great progress down there. So I thank you for the opportunity to work for you, and you know, if anybody has any questions or anything, please, you know, don't hesitate to ask me or check with Mr. Lynch and see if you need anything, and I can get it for you. So, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on board. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz, for being here. Moving on to unfinished business, we have a petition from Attorney Douglas E. Hausler, attorney for Dennis and George Scannell, regarding the construction of a billboard along the Lowell connector in the Tanner Street property. What is the wish of the council? Mr. Manager?
Perhaps the city solicitor could explain where we are with this and what what this is all about, and then I know the Councilor Kennedy asked for some input from the Planning and Development Department, which we're happy to give, and Assistant Manager Bakey is here to answer any questions from the Planning and Development standpoint, and I'm not sure whether Mr. Scannell is interested in speaking as well. I'm not sure, but perhaps start with the solicitor.
Sure, this was a, part of what's before the council was part of a pending settlement, and the settlement, in part, seeks to remove what had been a requirement on this property, that the successful bidder, in this case Mr. Scannell, would be required to build a billboard on that particular site. Coming before the council this evening, he's requesting that the council remove that requirement, and the other aspects of the settlement agreement are that the property ultimately be turned over to the abutter, and Mr. Scannell will, on his own, pursue through as would be his right to do in any event, the construction of a billboard on his own property, which is close by.
So,
Discussion? Councilor
thank you.
Mercia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager. It seems to me that a portion of that land is being, in a settlement, is being turned over to the abutter. We can't anticipate down the road that the abutter is going to want to come before us and put a sign up there as well. Could we rule that out, or could that be possible?
Solicitor or Mr. Bakey wants to weigh in on that?
In removing that requirement, and I'm not aware that this would in any way compromise the settlement, the council could put a restriction on the property that there be no building. And again, I don't know if Mr. Scannell has any information to the contrary, but I'm not aware that that would in any way hamper the settlement. Or you could put a restriction that there be no billboard on that site pursuant to the transfer of the land.
I'd like to do that.
Councilor Broderick?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the solicitor. If this goes through and there's a transfer and the abutter owns the parcel that we're talking about putting a billboard, that was voted to put a billboard on now, they would still have to go through the ZBA in the process to be able to erect a billboard sign anyway, wouldn't they?
They would.
So it wouldn't be as a matter of right. I don't know if that was kind of the question here, that whether or not we prohibit it in this, I think that they'd still have to come before the ZBA, they'd have to go to conservation, they'd have to go through all the steps that were previously done, and the odds of having one standing next to one that was, that if it was approved, I think would be slim, but I don't know if it's the body wants to put a restriction on or not, but it would have to still go through the process of getting approvals from the zoning board to get a billboard next to a billboard.
Councilor Noon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe that if we put restriction with the council doing that, so it would certainly help the zoning board of appeal in terms of looking over it at all. I would support the motion with conditions that, that no other billboard be built in this location. That foreclose or forego them from going to the zoning board of appeal.
And I would second that.
So motion by Counselor Noon, seconded by Counselor Mercia to add into
A restriction.
the motion, a restriction on the previous property. Counselor Kennedy. Motion by Counselor Noon, yes. Yeah. Yeah. The motion by Counselor Noon, seconded by Counselor Mercia, is to approve, but with the condition that that we set a restriction on the previous property.
Okay.
Right.
Counselor Mendonça.
Yeah, so just to clarify it, I hope for everyone, we had a restriction that the property could only be used for a billboard, which we're being asked to remove, which I think is consistent with what the abutter wants would be if we added the restriction that no building of a billboard on that site. We're replacing one restriction that only allows a billboard with one that doesn't allow a billboard. So I think that's all we're doing this evening, the current motion.
Any further? Counselor Martin.
Just to the solicitor, would that complicate or compromise the settlement, do you think?
I'm not aware that that would be a problem for the settlement.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Kennedy.
Could I just ask a question of the director of the Division Plan and Development? Is this billboard, or if there is a billboard, is the billboard going to be in the way of any development that might go on the Tanner Street corridor?
I think it's impossible to say for certain because we don't know exactly what will happen on the Tanner Street corridor, and the redevelopment plan for Tanner Street remains early in the process of being developed. However, the area in question where the proposed billboard would be located is unlikely to impact other options for the surrounding properties. I can't say for certain, but I think it's unlikely to have a significant effect on the Tanner Street, on the options for the development of Tanner Street.
Would we need a roll call with this?
What's the wish of the council?
A roll call on the motion?
No further discussion? Roll call, please.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Mendonça.
Yes.
Counselor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Counselor Noor.
Yes.
Counselor Broderick.
Yes.
Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy.
No.
Counselor Laurie.
Yes.
Moving on to the city manager's portion of the agenda, we have communication from city manager, responses to city council motions and requests. Any discussion? Councilor Mendonça.
Through the mayor to the manager, we had a communication regarding free cash.
Yes.
It seems like very good news. I was kind of surprised by the amount. It was much higher than I would have anticipated. Could you provide us with the big items that contributed to that amount? I know in the report that you said the school department was a big chunk of that, but that still leaves a significant amount. Also, how does the snow and ice deficit from last year play into this? I assume that it's already covered in order for this to be free cash.
I don't know if there's any one single item. We can certainly, I can work with the auditor to get you a report on what made up the free cash. The largest single portion of it was that the circuit breaker money that was in excess of what is allowed by regulations with the school department. The remainder is really closing out different cash accounts, that encumbrances that hadn't been exercised and utilized as, departmental spending that was not necessary. We have we've really tried to ingrain in the departments the notion that they should try to hold on to their money, that we don't abide by a, spend it or lose it type of approach, and that if they can make savings, then they should do so. So we have departments that are able to turn back money that help us get to that, to have some surpluses there. The other portion, and probably the larger portion, I think, is this becomes very clear when you do an analysis of our actual to projected local receipt calculations. We use very conservative forecasting when we prepare the budget for the city council. And if you look at where we are, for instance, over the last 5 years, we track very closely to, and actually just a little bit below, the forecast tracks a little bit below the actuals for each of those years. By contrast, if you look at the 5 years prior to that, you can see some of what caused the drawdown of free cash or reserves at that point in time. The revenue estimates were much more aggressive, and so you had the actuals coming in well below the projected. So I would say that it's the fact that we're conservative in those budgeting forecasts, and the good work of the departments to turn that money back. I want to certainly say that it's a very positive news for us. Roughly $2 million of free cash is good news, particularly contrasted with where the city was 6 years ago, when we had negative $2 million. But when you look at a $300 million operation, we're only talking roughly 0.75%, which is, it's better to be positive than negative, but it's below, it's actually below where we'd like to be in terms of our free cash each year. So in terms of the snow and ice, that was covered by transfers that we made back in the summer, and then the deficit was carried into the in the FY12 budget, which is what we're functioning on right now. So that doesn't enter into this at all.
Did we receive any FEMA money for the snow and ice, or do you recall?
I don't recall. We got did we get a small amount last year, Ms. Wright?
Okay.
Yeah. The prior, and then we it doesn't look like we're going to receive anything for that October storm for the snow. I'm still waiting to see if we get something for some of the other work that we had to do for the late October storm that's in this fiscal year.
Well, I am pleased with the amount, and I had noted that the forecast, while you were tracking forecast versus actual, that the actual was above, but I didn't think it was by that much.
Yeah,
so.
it's a little above, but it's not sizably above. But again, I think that it's a good number. I'm very pleased with it. I think our bond rating agencies will be very pleased with it. We'd actually like it to be a little bit more, and so that's what we strive for. That shows a good, healthy operational budget to have some cushion there that we're able to turn back in each year.
Congratulations on your accomplishment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Laurie and then Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I'd like to congratulate you on the money, but instead of putting it all into the free cash into the reserve fund, can we use any for recreation for the summer? The past couple of years, you have built up the reserve funds at the expense of some departments, really, and one I think is recreation. And when I look at the amount that we're going to be putting into the reserve, I'm wondering, is there any amount of that we could use for recreational facilities in the summer, pools, programs, or the like? Thank you.
We'll be coming in with the appropriation order with the transfer in the near future. Let me just, there's a couple of points I guess I would make. One is that this is, that's an FY13 budget item that, we would take up when we do the FY13 budget. And we certainly have a variety of options available to us, including tapping into the reserves if we need to. I would caution the second point is the fact that our reserves are well below where they should be. It's recommended by the Department of Revenue, by Moody's, by Standard & Poor's that we should be at about 5%. We're only at about 2.5%. And when we come in with that appropriation order, we'll have some examples of other communities. It's really it's interesting to look at the communities that are out there that have better reserves. And the benefit of having the better reserves is that you get lower interest rates on your borrowing. If we can drive that up, that would in turn provide longer-term benefit to the city in terms of savings that could then be put towards some of those services. And the third point I would make is that if you look at the policies that we have in place of the city council and the administration with regards to the financial policies, it does in fact show the goal of trying to build up those reserves. The city of Lowell has much lower reserves than peer communities.
Right.
But we can certainly look at that as we get into. I would recommend that we look at that more when we get into the FY13 budget to see about funding some of those types of items.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is good to have 1.7 in free cash, but I think we need to be cognizant that the free cash was a result of, to some degree, raising taxes, Mr. Manager. If we didn't have the resources to do it, we wouldn't have, and that's the people at home paying the taxes. So I'm going to support sending this to the general fund because that's the place that it should go. Excuse me, to the reserve fund, the stabilization fund. And I understand your point. I know the rating agencies suggest a certain percent, and some communities have it and some communities don't. But as I've mentioned in the past, 10% of a $300 million budget, having $30 million of taxpayers' money sitting in a reserve fund is a good goal. But how, at what expense? I mean, how much do we have to raise taxes to get it to that point? And it's a balance. It's a balance of providing services and how much can people afford to pay those taxes. So I hope come during budget time, while it's good to put some of the reserves, I hope we use some of these reserves as the governor is using in his budget. He's using $400 million from their rainy day fund. That'll leave $1 billion left in the state coffers. He's using some of that to fund his budget, and I think that we should consider the same thing, using some of this free cash, as we used some of the one-time free cash, because there's also a provision in the budget that if revenues exceed, again, similar to last year when there was $65 million in excess revenue, that he's going to do the same thing, and there's a provision that I read that he's going to, again, if revenues go, there's an additional $65 million, it's coming back to the community. So as we get closer, I know there's a lot of unanswered questions, but I think this is a good thing, and I also think that some of it should go to the taxpayers. Again, as you probably know, it's going to be a tight year, and I applaud your department heads for their conservative efforts, and you, Mr. Manager, for sometimes we have to tighten the belt. But as you know, we're still not there, and I hope you consider that anyway as we go forward, because the next budget does project, the 2.5 increase, from the fiscal forecast, another tax increase, which until everybody's back to work and things are, a little bit better, I think we have to keep that into consideration. So I just want to go on record as stating that I think that would be a good use. I'm not saying all of it, because the governor didn't use all of it, but I think it's worthy of consideration. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any further discussion? Councilman Johnson.
This is on another item. If the manager could speak to the bus shelters, the update on the bus shelters, that I think, I've had people ask me about what's going on with bus shelters, and just to show that there is some progress going on, we are moving forward with that. Through the mayor, if the manager could address
Mr. Manager.
Well, thank you, and I know that the mayor this has been an issue that's near and dear to his heart from about a year ago, and we started working with the LRTA, and it's been some funding issues that have come up on that. The Right now, the anticipation is that the money will come through for this spring, and we'll be able to move forward with, I believe, a dozen bus shelters within the city, and they'll be funded by, not by the city, but by the LRTA through some grant monies that they've been able to secure. And that's the time frame we're talking about right now. And they'll be scattered throughout the city in various neighborhoods. So that, and the goal, of course, is, as the mayor has had asked when he filed a motion asking us to do some work on this a while back, what we hope is to use those bus shelters as a means of also providing neighborhood information, so that people would see a map of that neighborhood, and we'll be working with the LRTA to try to make that happen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion under responses to council motions? Seeing none, motion by, Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, on the, we received a report from Mr. Bakey on the Lowell Housing Authority. Excuse me, getting an update. I had filed a motion, I didn't see any update here. I had filed a motion on December 20th regarding the Housing Authority and getting contracts and any possible, any change orders. I haven't seen anything in the packet on that. I would like to know how, how this is being paid for. Who's getting paid? Who got paid to do, demolition or construction, or I know there was an architect, but
Look, if I may, let me check on the status of that and see where that stands.
okay, thank you. I would appreciate it. I think it'll go a long way to try to find out, who is responsible, who provided the oversight, who should be held accountable for this.
I think the largest portion of this, I believe, was in-house work, but we will follow up on that.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Motion to accept and place on file by Councilor Mendonça, second by Councilor Mercia. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next, we have a communication from the city manager. From the city manager, request approval of out-of-state travel for the police and also for the library. What's the wish of the council? Motion by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Laurie. Roll call, please.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Mendonça.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Lowell.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Laurie.
Yes.
Being 7 o'clock, we'll move to the public hearing portion of the agenda. We have an ordinance in City Council, an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances for the City of Lowell, Massachusetts, the Code, with respect to Chapter 266, entitled Vehicles and Traffic. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Kennedy, seconded by Councilor Laurie. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. What is the wish of the council? Excuse me. We'll open it up for a public hearing. Any wishing to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance? All those wishing to speak in favor? In favor? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Any wishing to speak in opposition? To speak in opposition? In opposition, that portion of the public hearing is closed. What's the wish of the council?
Move approval.
Move for approval by Councilor Mercia, second by Councilor Laurie. Roll call, please.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Mendonça.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Nguyen.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Laurie.
Yes.
Next, we have an ordinance in City Council ordinance, an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Lowell, Massachusetts, with respect to Chapter 171 thereof, entitled Health and Sanitation, Section 171-13, Refuse Dumpsters. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Mendonça, seconded by Councilor Noon. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? We'll open up for a public hearing. Any wishing to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance? Ms. Amaral.
Good evening, members of the council. I am up here to just speak a quick summary on the ordinance changes that we've proposed here for the dumpster ordinance. These are being done to mirror the changes of the regulations that the Board of Health recently passed in January. The Board of Health has jurisdiction over dumpsters through state law. And what we're asking to do is just take care of a couple of things that have been brought up at council as well as identified by residents in terms of issues that are going on. In general, what we're looking to do is, first of all, add donation containers, which has been a matter of concern regarding illegal dumping around them. When donation containers get full, people just start dumping items around them, and there is no way for us to regulate or enforce on those, so adding those to the regulations. We're also looking to change the way we do permitting. The city currently permits over 1,000 dumpsters per year, and right now the way we do that is we permit and inspect them all in January, which does not make for a very good operation nor for a very thorough permitting process or inspection process. So by allowing us to spread this out over the course of the year, I think we can do a much better job of ensuring the dumpsters in the city meet the regulations and are maintained in a way that is compliant with both public safety and public health. We are looking to get consistent with screening and location. We do have issues with what we call floating dumpsters that are originally put in a place that makes sense, and then they find their way out onto a public sidewalk in the middle of a driveway or some other way, restricting both access to public ways as well as an issue for public health. So what we want to do is get consistent with the requirements for screening and dumpster pads and other specifics about the placement and management of dumpsters. We want to increase the penalties for subsequent offenses on dumpsters. We do have an issue right now in the ordinance that if a dumpster is overflowing or is otherwise non-compliant, we notify the dumpster permit holder. They have 12 hours to remedy. If they do remedy it, then process stops until the next time we get a complaint. We call them, they have 12 hours again with no penalty, and we continue on and on like that. If in fact they don't remedy within the 12 hours, then we can issue a fine, but it's $50, and $50 is pretty cheap and honestly not so much of an issue if you're having to manage your dumpster pickup. So what we're requesting is going from $50 to $50 for the first and $150 thereafter, which then makes it more costly to not manage your dumpster on a regular basis. It becomes more expensive for you to be getting fines than it is to either increase the number of pickups or call for an extra pickup if the dumpster is overflowing, again addressing public health and public safety with the overflow, the attraction of pests and other issues that come with dumpsters that aren't being maintained. And finally, what we're looking to do is make sure that the Board of Health has the flexibility to issue variances from this. We do understand that in a number of cases in the city, properties don't necessarily allow for a full screening or a dumpster enclosure. And in order to ensure that we are not creating a hardship for those property owners, allowing the Board of Health to therefore issue variances from that particular requirement so that the dumpsters can still be placed in a way that maintains public health and safety, but does not create a significant burden on the property owner. So in summary, those are the changes that we are recommending, and I can answer any questions that anyone may have.
We're still in the portion of the public hearing to speak in favor. So, anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the ordinance? In favor? Favor? That portion of the public hearing is closed. Any wishing to speak in opposition to the ordinance? In opposition? In opposition, that portion of the public hearing is closed. What's the wish of the council?
Just point of order, the fees is a separate.
Correct. Yep. Councilor Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Kendra Amaral, I'm concerned about the dumpster ordinance. Is it saying anywhere in there where like a shield or some sort of a fencing to block the unsightliness of the dumpster that's permanently there all the time? Is there such a rule about that?
The way the ordinance will read is it will defer to the Board of Health regulations, and the regulations that the Board of Health just passed do require a screen, a fence that goes around the dumpster, goes to at least the height of the dumpster and all the way to the ground.
Having said that, and the reason I bring this forward, Ms. Amaral, is because there are neighbors that live on, I don't, Glenmere, I want to say the side street from the Douglas Road, which is the side of the Riley School. And the people have been asking for a number of times if the school department could put up like a fence so they don't have to look at that dumpster. And there's other things that are there too. There's like storage bins or whatever. And they say it's a beautiful neighborhood, and yet we got to look at that for years and years. Can they? So I'd like to know if somehow we could address that. I'm just thinking out loud. I'm not making a motion, but.
That would actually be addressed through this ordinance change, because as I said, the Board of Health are now instituting requirements where all dumpsters must be screened, so that dumpster would have to be screened. The complaint not only is about unsightliness, but oftentimes if someone can see a dumpster from the street and they're looking to get rid of something, they're going to just prop it up against it, and by having these dumpsters enclosed and screened, it creates a greater deterrent. So by adopting the ordinance that ties to the Board of Health regulations, that is in there, that it will need to be screened, it will need to be enclosed by a fence.
But we are the people, the city, that has to do that. Do you understand you know what I mean? It's not like we're gonna call Mrs. Smith and say, cover up your, I'm referring to ourselves. This is the city, a school.
And the Board of Health has already exerted its authority over some things that have to do with sanitation relative to the schools, so I do think we can get a good compliance.
Thank you very much, thank you.
Councilor Laurie and then Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Kendra. The fees, $50 for the first violation, $150. How many times would they pay $150 before they lose the right to the dumpster?
We don't put in there a specific amount of times, though we do have in the Board of Health regulations that the Board of Health can revoke the dumpster permit, making it possible for them not to have it. What we're going to try and do, though, is get at it at different ways. First, the fees, and also the requirement that they increase the number of pickups if there are issues such as overflow on a regular basis, that as well as in the Board of Health regulations in those specific sections that we're asking for the ordinance to defer to. I think we'd have to take it on a case-by-case basis as to when we actually start revoking the dumpster permits, because there are various circumstances that lead to it.
At $150, that's fine, but what I was concerned of, if it's cheaper to pay the $150 than to have a pickup, you would continually do it. And then if the dumpster's in a neighborhood, and now it's a problem.
And it's the reason why we pushed forward the 150. I believe the 150 would exceed what most people would be paying for an extra pickup, whereas the 50 does not.
But they could lose the privilege.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Martin.
My questions have been answered. Thanks.
Any, Councilor Noon.
Thank you, to you, through you, Mayor, to Kendra. Will the ordinance or the change in the Board of Health regulation take effect at the time of renewal for the dumpster for the owner, or take effect immediately?
Take effect immediately, I believe, but I'm going to look to the city solicitors, since their regulations have already been voted. The question is since I believe the city ordinance supersedes. So.
Madam Solicitor.
Sure. The city ordinance will supersede, and there is actually, as Councilor Mendonça had pointed out at our last meeting, or when this first surfaced, there is a current conflict, which I think the board is well aware of, and they're going to be addressing that at their next meeting with their regulations, so that the regulations fully comply with what's in the ordinance.
Will the screening also part of the regulation of the Board of Health in terms of the dumpster, that all dumpster in the city be screened or enclosed with some screen?
The regulations that the Board of Health passed require that the screening be done by the end of 2013. So again, giving property owners time to either determine whether or not they'd like a variance or to come into compliance with it. But the requirement becomes effective immediately with it being met by December 31st, 2013.
what are the fine or what are the penalty for not screening it?
It would be a violation of the ordinance, which is in violation of the ordinance and the regulations. I believe in that case it is 150 as well, but I'd have to go back and check. But there will be violations as well as non-issuing of a permit. So if we don't issue a permit, then the dumpster must be removed, and we can do that through a cease and desist.
What happened with owners that have some hardship in terms of the property doesn't have enough, space to, yes, they have enough space to put the dumpster, but not enough space to put the screen. What happened to them?
And that's where the variance process does come into place. The Board of Health will entertain variances based on hardship in terms of meeting that particular section of the regulations, and will be able to grant such variances if, in the case, there's not enough room to either do a dumpster pad or an enclosure or any other issues that may come up in compliance with this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilor Kennedy.
Mr. Mayor, through you, what's the average cost for a pickup?
That actually depends on the size of the dumpster and the number of pickups that you have per week, per month. It does vary significantly.
From what to what?
I would say it could be between, even that's tough to say, probably between $25 to $120, depending on how often you pick up and how large of a dumpster you're using.
Okay. Well, I mean, you said that $50 wasn't enough, and that 150 would be. So I assume that you had an idea of 20 to 125.
Yep, I'd say that varies, though. I will say that the dumpster companies do not like to let that information out, so we did have to do some digging for it.
Councilor Martin.
Thanks. I can shed some anecdotal evidence on that. I was the treasurer of a condo association until about 8 years ago. 7-unit condo, a typical size dumpster, which I see, I don't know if there's a standard size, but it's the size I see most frequently around the city. And at that time, it was $90-something, $95 to have emptied. I'm sure that's gone up since then. But that is the most typical size. Now, that was a once-a-month thing, so if it were once a week, it may cost, I don't know if that means it costs more or less. But I get the point of the ordinance. It might be cheaper to pay the fine than to pay for an extra pickup.
Any further discussion on the ordinance? What's the wish of the council? Move for approval by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Noon. Roll call, please.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Madonza.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Nguyen.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Laurie.
Yes.
Next, we have the ordinance referenced earlier. In City Council ordinance, an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances for the City of Lowell, Massachusetts, the code with respect to Chapter 150 thereof entitled Fees. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Mendonça, seconded by Councilor Mercia. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. I'll open it up for public hearing for those wishing to speak in favor of the ordinance. In favor? In favor? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Open it up for those wishing to speak in opposition. In opposition? In opposition? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. What's the wish of the council?
Move approval.
Move for approval by Councilor Mercia, second by Councilor Broderick. Roll call, please.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Madonza.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Nguyen.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Laurie.
Yes.
Thank you. Moving back to the city manager's portion of the agenda, we have a vote in city council vote authorizing the city manager to apply, accept, and expend funds from the United States Environmental Protection Agency's Brownfields Multi-Purpose Pilot Grant in the amount of $400,000.
Move approval.
Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Laurie, second by Councilor Kennedy. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Move for approval by Councilor Kennedy, second by Councilor Broderick. Roll call, please.
Counselor Martin. Counselor Medonsa.
Yes.
Counselor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Counselor Nguyen.
Yes.
Counselor Broderick.
Yes.
Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counselor Laurie.
Yes.
Next, we have an order taking an acceptance of Technology Drive. In City Council, order of taking an acceptance of Technology Drive to take by eminent domain and fee a certain parcel of land in the city of Lowell for municipal purposes, to wit, the layout and acceptance of Technology Drive and other municipal purposes associated therewith. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Mercia, second by Councilor Laurie. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. What's the wish of the council?
Were we setting a public hearing?
Right.
Motion to set a public hearing.
Motion to refer to a public hearing by Councilor Mercia, seconded by Councilor Mendonça, and that will take place on the 21st of February. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. I support it going to a public hearing. But, Mr. Manager, I'm just curious how come this is coming to us now. I think this was done quite some time ago, right? The development out there. I guess my concern is that this section of the roadway is in pretty poor shape. Who currently owns it, or who is the developer gone, or?
This is one of those unaccepted roads.
Right.
That's out there that we have, the developer is out of it, and it's gone, this bond is gone, and in order for us to make it eligible for Chapter 90 money, it's necessary for us to, and this is all part of the, we've talked about this at the council meetings in the past, to bring these roads on,
Right.
to do the necessary survey work and take the properties and accept them.
Who is the developer? I'm curious why, when you come off, I'm sorry, I'll let you answer the question.
No, I was done answering that question, and,
Who was the developer? Because I'm going to presume this was, you're in Chelmsford and would have collaborated with
Right.
whoever it was at that time.
On the Chelmsford side, I believe it was Nordblom,
Okay, so,
but I'm not sure who it was on the Lowell side.
okay. So literally, there was one developer that did it up to the Chelmsford line, and then another one that did it to the Lowell line?
It actually predated me somewhat. I was not manager at the time in Chelmsford, so I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
But it was built in the early 80s.
Oh, it was, okay, well, I didn't know it was that soon. And again, my only concern was, as soon as, say, from Carl Street down to the Chelmsford line, you probably know. I mean, I saw the DPW guys out there yesterday. I happen to go here on a regular basis, and the road's in very bad condition, so we're going to take it over, and then...
I think it is a public road in the town of Chelmsford.
Yeah, and that part of the road is...
In good shape.
In good shape.
Right. The other side is where there's a very large pothole as technology comes to...
Okay, I just wanted to see if the developer was around, if we had a performance bond or not, but...
I think my sense is that it was all released.
Okay.
And signed off on back in the 80s.
All right, thank you.
Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Being an unaccepted road, we can't get any money from the state on there, right?
Correct.
We're not supposed to be plowing them?
Plowing is you can do plowing. You really shouldn't be doing much. You can't use any Chapter 90 money in the maintenance of the road. But we have a number of these roads in the city that we...
Right, I had a couple on my route, and it was always a question when I was a mailman on what the city could actually do with them.
Right.
And the concern of the people who were on them were paving and things like that.
Right.
So if we don't vote to accept it...
If we don't vote to accept it, we're limited in the types of money we have available to put into that. We can probably put some city money into it. It's a public way. It's just not an accepted street.
Thank you.
So there's a motion on the floor to refer this to a public hearing on February 21st. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next, we have a communication from City Manager regarding the presentation of goals and objectives, and I have a personal promise that this is going to be very brief. Mr. Manager.
Less than 2 hours. I will try to go through this as quickly as possible, and trust me, I would like that more than anybody else. But I do think that I gave the council a document some time ago outlining the goals and objectives that were set up jointly by the City Council and the administration about a year ago now. And I gave a report to you on what had been accomplished, which had been a request by a motion of the council. And then there was a further motion to actually make a presentation, which I have here tonight. And as I say, I'll go through it very quickly because I think you already have a good portion of this in front of you in terms of the written document. But for the people viewing at home, certainly, I think it's nice to know the accomplishments that have been reached by the council and the administration to improve the city of Lowell. So, as I say, let me go through it very quickly, and I'll be happy to take any questions. First off, we'll start with the goals. That we have a number of goals that the City Council voted to support and voted to set forth for the administration to try to achieve. I won't read each one, but let me give the title of each one, and that breaks down for the rest of the presentation. First goal is government services, that essentially, we're operating in the best practice customer-focused government, and we've taken a number of actions along those lines that I'll describe. Financial stability, I think, speaks for itself, and it's certainly something that we've been all working at for 5 or 6 years now. Certainly, as we encountered some difficult financial conditions some time ago, and we've gone through a very difficult period with the recession, the Great Recession that we've all encountered. Public safety, I think that certainly speaks for itself, as does community development in terms of improving the overall condition of the city. Economic development, I know this is a priority of a number of people on the City Council. I know that Councilor Kennedy, when he recently was elected to the council, made this a strong part of his agenda, that we do quite a bit in the area of economic development, and I think what we can show tonight is we've done a lot, and there's a lot more that needs to be done. Education, sustainability. Sustainability certainly was a priority of the City Council last couple of years, and I think we really are a leader in this area, particularly as an urban community. And then the goal of improving our infrastructure, and this is, and I know that Councilman Donser and others have had an issue with this in the past, that we have to invest in our physical infrastructure. Our capital plan has to be able to really become a priority for us. So, a summary statement, if you will, that during a historic recession that we've gone through with devastating state aid cuts of about $14 million, the city has been able to maintain or increase its service delivery. We have reduced crime. We have better customer service, and we've increased our reserves during this period of time. So we've been able to maintain our service delivery, improve the outcomes, and improve our financial position. At the same time, we've maintained a stable tax policy. We've actually, as you know, increased our levy capacity this year by another $1 million, and I'll get into that in a little bit more. But we have less of an increase in the past 5 years than we had in the prior 5 years in terms of total taxation. So I think we've done quite a bit there with our tax policy. And all this has been accomplished through strategic governance and administration, setting forth goals by the City Council and the administration trying to live up to those standards with the actions that we've taken. First off, in the area of government services, specifically focused on customer service, this is an area that I know Councilor Mercier has been quite strong on, that we have to do more in the way of customer service, and former Councilor Dakota was equally strong on this. We've done quite a bit of training, over 200 hours of customer service training for our employees. We've instituted policies for the eGov system so that it's more responsive, that we're actually able to respond to service requests, particularly through the DPW, and that those requests have been coded in such a way that we can better understand what's happening out in the field. So we've really taken advantage of this online service that citizens can use 24/7, but we ourselves use here to be able to track what's going on out in the community. We've instituted a municipal hearing officer program for parking appeals and other non-criminal disposition, non-criminal ticketing. There have been over 30 different appeals that have been heard. And importantly, I think in terms of customer service, what we've done is we've made these hearings available when what's convenient to the citizens. That can be during the day, but it can be in the evening as well. And the result has been increased revenue coming in, increased enforcement for the city, and it's been done in a customer-friendly way, if there's ever a way to do a hearing in a customer-friendly way. We've put in place a City Hall greeter program, and again, Councilor Mercier has asked us to put more forms online, and we've responded. There are more forms out there for development services. Kendra has, the Development Services Office has done this. We've also put more of our treasurer's forms online. So we're trying to make Lowell City government more responsive and more available to the citizens. In the area of technology, this too has been something that we've been focused on in terms of being able to deliver to the citizens. We have a city Facebook page now. We're taking advantage of the social media. We have a number. We have over 400 people that like us. We'd like to have more, but we just started this in the last month or so. So anyway, it provides timely information for people that. What's that? Exactly. It provides timely information and good news stories. We like getting those good news stories out there, and so the Facebook has been a part of that. We've also done a number of upgrades to our software for better functionality and interoperability between departments with our Munis program. We've updated the assessors database. We've done our Key to the City program, which a number of you saw. We did the wastewater and water, very popular, very good. The Oscar nominations are coming out soon, I think, and we may be in the running. I don't know. We've installed a new phone system. Councilor Elliott, I know, and Councilor Dakota asked that we do something to increase and encourage people from the city of Lowell to apply for jobs. So we have the job alert program. We've been put in place. Someone asked just last week about notifications of when we do snow ban parking for during snowstorms. That's the city notification program. We have that up and running. We've also increased the use of technology for our work order system for Public Works, and we're doing more in that. And I know that there's a motion on tonight by Councilors Menoncer and the Mayor with regards to the schools, and I think this feeds right into that. We can now track the work being performed. We're also doing more, as I said, more forms are online for inspections, but also beyond that, the inspectional services is better able to track what's going on in the area of inspectional services because of the improvements we've made there in our technology. In terms of our policies and procedures, we've updated our city investment policy, as you know, to increase the use of local banks. We've instituted, for the first time in the city of Lowell, a safety manual. Just good risk management that we have. We've trained our employees, and we now have a safety manual in place. We've updated many of our department policies in terms of the police accreditation, for instance, and the development services, the fast-track permitting. These are all been done through policy updates in departments. And then we also, and again, this goes to a motion that Councilors Elliott and Dakota had for doing more for our upward mobility of our employees, the professional development program. We worked with UMass Boston on a program they did for 25 employees. It's now the role model, or it was a pilot here. It's being rolled out across the Commonwealth, and it was customized for City of Lowell, and it covered finance, budgeting, labor, and performance measurement, and very well received by our employees, and they appreciate the opportunity to learn more about city operations so that they themselves can move up the ladder here in the city. The Lowell STAP program, it's been involved in a number of changes throughout city government in terms of our operations, the collection of fines, the outsourcing of cemetery maintenance. We now do regular STAP meetings, and we're rolling that out more. We actually are going on the web, providing the stat information to our citizens, and we'll be providing you with monthly reports as well. We have estimated that the savings and efficiency exceed $1 million between the savings from the cemetery maintenance, above $800,000, $300,000 in past due fines that have been identified, the workplace safety grant of $20,000, and another $800,000 in grants pending. And I can tell you that just in general, we've been able to highlight and really get at the core issues that we have in terms of operation. Just today, we had a meeting with our wastewater department. And through the STAT program, we've been identifying some of the personnel needs that we have there moving forward with succession planning and the like, that we're just managing better by using data and using information rather than just going on gut instinct. So I think that STAT program has proven very successful, and I think as we roll out more and more information, you'll see that. Certainly you saw that to a large extent even in the budget last year with the information, the data that's in there in terms of performance measurement. In terms of regionalization, another area in government services, a number of different areas here that we've worked on. Street sweeping, catch basin cleaning are performed through a regional bid now. So we're getting the best possible price by working with communities primarily to the north of us through the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, and that has saved us quite a bit of money. We were awarded a state grant to study potential regional public health service delivery, and we're working with the Greater Lowell Health Alliance on a number of initiatives in that category. As you know, we're participating. There's a great story in today's paper about our regional sealer of weights and measures. It's not a large amount of money, but it's it's really been a transition of probably a cost to the city of about $50,000 or $60,000 to provide the sealer of weights and measures program. It's now just about break even. Regional dispatch is something that certainly hasn't been rolled out, but it's being looked at very carefully. The city of Lowell could save about $500,000 by moving to regional dispatch, working with our surrounding communities, and that's being done through the Northern Middlesex Council of Governments as well. And we're also, we just filed a grant application with NIMCOG for a regional stormwater utility. This is the new area of EPA enforcement is on stormwater management, and more stringent regulations are coming out that could be quite costly. We think working cooperatively with our area communities, we can accomplish compliance at the same time doing it in the most cost-effective way. In terms of collective bargaining, we put it here in government services, although clearly it rolls over into the finance area as well. We've reached agreement with a number of unions for fiscal year 11 and 12, with 0% increase in both years. Firefighters, you've already approved. In the next week, you'll see the traffic supervisors, the police superiors, and perhaps one or two other unions that we're working with. That will then set us up to start looking at 3-year contracts with all of our bargaining units for fiscal years 13, 14, and 15. We've also, as you know, made important strides in the area of health insurance. The savings we had this past year in the fiscal year 12 budget, which I'll speak to again in a second probably, but by eliminating Master Medical for the non-school employees, we saved a considerable sum of money. They allowed us to maintain services. And then, of course, we had the very I'll use the term historic agreement that we reached with our collective bargaining groups for moving forward into fiscals 13, 14, and 15 and beyond, going with the Group Insurance Commission. This will save us a considerable sum of money. In terms of the second goal, which is finance, the FY12 budget maintains service levels, no major cuts. We were very, when you go around the state and you talk to other communities, particular other cities similar to the city of Lowell, they're still experiencing major cuts. That has not been the case here in the city of Lowell for some time. In fact, I would argue that we have been able to pretty much manage our budget in a way that maintained our services throughout this downturn. We obviously experienced a reduction in staffing of about 10 to 12%. But at the same time, we've been able to still maintain all the services that we provide, which I think is real credit to our department heads and our employees. We've increased our excess levy capacity. We actually increased that by over $1 million this year. So we're in terms of taxing the citizens, we've actually moved away from that, and I have some interesting information a little bit further on that. We've mitigated fixed cost increases through various savings, certainly the elimination of Master Medical, the outsourcing of cemetery maintenance. Those enabled us to avoid the impact of the cost increases on our pension system and our health insurance, and that allowed us to, again, maintain the service levels that we have. In terms of the tax increase, here in the city of Lowell, we had a $31 increase to average homeowner increase in fiscal year 12. That compares to the $163 statewide. For some reason, the Department of Revenue doesn't have statistics on all 351 cities and towns, but they have it for about 318 communities, and we're at 242nd. We have now, as a result of the fiscal year 12 budget, we've now dropped down to about 258 or 260. We're still waiting for the final numbers. So we've moved backwards in terms of the amount of taxes here in the city and in terms of where we stand relative to the rest of the state. Other accomplishments in the area of finance, certainly are significant. We're removed from the Department of Revenue's watch list, which we've been placed on in fiscal year 2006. We reached agreements with our unions, as you know, to move into the GIC, thereby stabilizing those health insurance costs, and those will allow us, we believe, to really set ourselves up moving forward to be very financially stable and also to, again, lessen the tax burden here in the city. And we'll have more on that as we go into the fiscal year 13 budget. In terms of the capital plan, we have presented an updated capital plan and implemented this first year of the new capital plan, or the updated capital plan, primarily with snow fighting equipment that has proven very successful. We've not had any snow, so we've scared it away. We've certainly made other investments in our public facilities. In terms of the operating budget itself, the budget document, we're still waiting to see whether it receives recognition from the Government Finance Officers Association, but it's a redesigned city operating budget that we think has been very well received by the public and hopefully very well received by the council, because it provides so much information about the departments, the summary of the budget changes, the workload indicators that are all part of providing information to you as decision makers, but to the public as the investors in the city. In terms of revenues, we've increased revenues through a number of measures, certainly the tax title collections, and we'll have more on this probably in the packet next week. But we've reduced our tax title amounts by about $1 million, and we have a very aggressive plan that we want to roll out to you of how we're going to close that out even more and still meet some of our other goals with making properties available for development. In terms of fine collections, we've received $71,000 more in liens from the fines that had been liened, and $500,000 from the banks as a result of hard-nosed negotiating by Kendra with Bank of America. She's probably the only one in the country that has been able to be successful with Bank of America, and with, I believe, Wells Fargo is another one that we received quite a bit of money from as part of our abandoned properties ordinance. If I could, in terms of our reserves, you heard earlier, we've been talking about our reserves. We have actually improved our stabilization and free cash position. This is not even bringing in the most recent information that we talked about earlier tonight. We went in fiscal year 2006, where we had, and the yellow that you see there is what's known as the Chapter 17 account that was put in place by the Oversight Board back in the early 1990s. But you can see that in 2006, we had negative $2.2 million in free cash. This shows that moving up in fiscal year 10 to $1.3 million. Now, we took that $1.3 million and we put that, some of it into police overtime, and the remainder we put into, primarily into the reserve fund. And then you can see up at the upper level there, we've put that is the stabilization fund, which was 2006. Actually, in 2008, it was still zero. Again, for a city our size, with our budget, to have a stabilization fund of zero is really a very low number. But we are working to build that up to a combined level that meets the standards for a community of our size. So our overall condition has improved dramatically. Financial, again, we've reduced the property tax levy by $1 million. We've increased our snow and ice budget by $500,000, which, again, sets us up very well moving forward. That's something that was woefully underfunded, and we now, I know the mayor has made mention of this for some time, and it's something we've been working at incrementally. This year, we were able to put a larger amount in there that will really improve us. And then, of course, as you know, in this last few months, we were finally able to resolve the deficiency in the treasurer's office and have reconciled the cash book for the first time since 1999. That has been a finding in our management letter that we were finally able to clear up. As we indicated, it was not money that was missing, it was money that we had that was not being accounted for properly. Thankfully, that is behind us now. In the area of public safety, you've seen the numbers, the preliminary numbers, that crime has gone down by 16%. That's not to say that we don't have crime. It's not to say that there's not more work to be done there, particularly issues that we have in our downtown area. But we do have that. We've received the public safety, the police department secured $2.4 million in grant funding. We're doing a better job of tracking fire department information, inspections. Data on our inspections has increased by 50%. And we've, for the first time that we can find, we actually have a proactive certificate of inspection process where we actually go out and do every 5 years inspections of rental properties, of multifamily properties. That was not taking place before here in the city. With the new Inspectional Services Department, it is taking place. Just a few other areas here. We've been working closely with the Sheriff's Department on the warrant apprehension unit. They've made 614 arrests. They've cleared 992 warrants. Our community response team in the police department and gang units has made 648 arrests. We moved animal control over to the police department, which we think will be much more successful. I think we have a report either in this packet or going in next week's about our pit bull report, and we're making progress there. We're getting much more coverage. The police have been out there meeting with the neighborhood groups. They've attended 100% of all the neighborhood meetings, which was a goal that we had. In the fire department, we've implemented a technical rescue team. The training was done on comp time, so we're much better trained now. We secured a dive rescue truck. And again, in the area of inspectional services, the deputy fire chief position was established to stabilize that fire prevention bureau, which was like a revolving door for a number of years, for a number of months, or actually a couple of years now. We had people coming in and out, and there wasn't the continuity that we think is necessary. Also in public safety, we put in place on-call inspectors, so people are available to do inspections 24/7. We have plumbing and electric inspectors that we've brought on, also put on call to ensure that work doesn't stop because of an absence. And that was something that had been a problem with us that we identified and we did something about. We now have over 500 properties registered in our foreclosed properties program, which was our goal, that we know who owns these properties, who controls these foreclosed properties. The receivership program has had quite a bit of success. We've only had 2 properties go through the receivership process, but a number of property owners cleared up their issues because of the threat of receivership, and we have several more that we're working with right now. We're better record keeping and accountability, and I think you can see that with any of the reports that you seek from inspectional services. And then in terms of coordination with our other public safety departments, in the area of inspectional services, we now have assigned districts to our building and sanitary inspectors that coincide with the police department, and we're tying that in with the public works department as well, so we can consistently and effectively do the multi-departmental neighborhood sweeps that have been very successful. Public safety, too. This was an issue that I know then Councilor Caulfield was concerned about as well, the pavement markings program. This was put in place, and it should be completed near the end of fiscal year 12. We've done a number of traffic studies of major intersections. We are currently working on a master plan for traffic that we'll be bringing before the council. That was Councilor Elliott had asked that we do some work on that. We've done some traffic and signage improvements throughout the city that I think are significant. In terms of community development, the master plan, this is no small thing. The master plan has been updated. Henry Marchand has implemented a revised Adopt an Island program that has had quite a bit of success and quite a bit of neighborhood buy-in. We also, on the acre plan, we've been implementing Phase 2 with the buildings on Rock Street and Willie Street being demolished, and we manage the environmental assessment and remediation out at those sites. I should note that the master plan was done with quite a bit of community input. This wasn't something that was just done in-house. There was online tools that were used, there were public opinion surveys, and again, quite a bit of community buy-in to that. Again, in community development, Cambodia Town, which has been very well received in the Cambodian community, and there's quite a bit of buy-in by the businesses and by the residents in that section of the city, and we think that will be an important economic development tool for us, as well as a means of improving that general neighborhood. That came in large part out of the neighborhood initiative in the Lower Highlands area. That also included the improvements at Clemente Park, including the lights, which, again, the mayor was very strong on and very vocal about the need to do that. We've also done paving out in that area. We've done some economic development, some facade improvements, some other park improvements. We did park improvements certainly out at the Armory Park. You can see the picture there. We also did some other neighborhood parks out at the Red Cross Reach Park out on the Merrimack River. We did the Lawrence Mills Park down by the Renaissance condominiums that belongs to us. We're now in the back central area doing some improvements in that area. And in the downtown summit that we held in November, working with the businesses and the residents in the downtown area, and there's more work that needs to be done there, but we've engaged the community in those types of efforts. Almost done. Economic development, Hamilton Canal, the infrastructure improvements to the area, particularly along Jackson Street. The Appleton Mills opened up, and I know that Councilor Martin said this just last week. The fact that we had a $65 million project move forward in this difficult economic climate is no small achievement. And credit goes certainly to Trinity Financial, and to the thanks goes to the delegation and our federal partners on that as well, and the good work of our Planning and Development Department. On Tanner Street, we've secured a planning consultant, and I believe a number of councilors were at the planning session that we had out there. The trolley system, we've received about $3 million in grants, working with the National Park Service, and again, that's an exciting project that needs more attention, and needs more consideration, but it certainly has the potential to be a very positive project for the city. One of those big projects that the city of Lowell is known for. In terms of economic development, I think it's important to note that the actual number of jobs in Lowell is staying consistent with pre-recession numbers. That we have a number of smaller companies, such as HB Software and Diagnosis One, which relocated to Lowell with assistance from the city. Cobham, working with the city, expanded its presence in Lowell, resulting in at least 300 jobs. We have a energy investment company currently located in a neighboring community that we anticipate will be signing a lease. It should be any day now. We've assisted local businesses in relocating to larger space in Lowell, keeping the business in the city. That's Borrego Solar. Over 56 jobs have been created or retained by businesses receiving financial or technical assistance. I mentioned the jobs are are in line with pre-recession numbers, and we're one of the only communities around that can point to this. This gives you a chart that shows you a little bit of that you can see that in calendar year 2000, we had just about 50,000 jobs here in the city. That dropped off dramatically to about 2008. Where it dropped down to about just about 47,000 jobs. And then, of course, after the recession, it dropped very precipitously in 2009. But we've been able to work with the businesses and get businesses locating here, so that the number of jobs in the city is back up at about that $46,000 point in time. So we're not quite at the number we were in 2000, but we are at the point we were in 2006 and 2007, pre-recession. And I think it's a major achievement for what we've been able to do. But again, we're not just sitting on that. We do continue to move forward and work with businesses. We have been designated as a Platinum Bio-Ready community in this past year, which is a designation from the Mass Biotech Council, that they're buildings that are already permitted for biotech and have 20,000 square feet of available space for biotech uses. We have pre-permitted land sites that have completed the MEPA review to comply with the bio-ready designation. So we're ready to work with those businesses that are interested in that industry. Obviously, we can't take full credit for some of the other things that are going on here with substantial investment by UMass Lowell, Middlesex Community College, and LGH, but I think they certainly speak to the vitality of the city, that those projects are moving forward, and they've been done in a way that will certainly pay off for the city, and we've been working cooperatively with each one of those organizations and institutions here in the city. And I think Lowell General is really a classic example of that. The work that our inspectional services people did has been highly praised by the Lowell General administration, and the way we've been able to turn that around through development services, but also through our public works departments. We also have been working with our neighboring communities along the Route 3 corridor. A major accomplishment certainly during the late 1990s was the widening of Route 3. That now stands ready, working with Chelmsford, Billerica, Bedford, and Burlington to drive and connect ourselves with those communities. Further economic development, the consolidation of permitting functions on the development services, it's really was completed primarily during the 2011 timeframe. That's provided additional convenience for developers, but also for neighborhood people that want to know what's going on in their neighborhoods. Increased electrical inspection permits have taken place during the same year. We've been working on a number of economic development projects, working with companies like Borrego Solar and American Capital Energy. We have as well as a number of smaller businesses. The Better Buildings Program, which was a $5 million grant that we received for energy improvements in our historic district. 6 projects have been completed. The businesses see this as very helpful to them in terms of making themselves more energy efficient. It's really an economic development tool for us, as we're able to make projects happen utilizing this $5 million of federal money. And the best retail practices continues to go out into the neighborhoods and into the downtown areas as a facade improvement program on a number of different businesses. In education, for the 4th year, we have met our net school spending requirements. That is, when you consider that from 1993, when the net school spending requirement was put in place, until 2008, we never met the minimum net school spending. But in 9, 10, 11, and 12, we have done that. And that, I think, speaks to our commitment to the to education here in our city. We've also, for the first time, had a majority of our schools compliant with the Certificate of Inspection program. They had not been compliant in terms of meeting safety standards. So again, working with development services, with the DPW, those majority of the schools are now compliant with the COI program. As you know, we've made a number of facility improvements through the Amoresco and through the work of our DPW and Parks departments. We have improved the school facilities by replacing the furnace at the Laura Lee School, replaced the water pumps and motors at the Robertson Middle School, replaced the boilers at several schools. The Riley School received quite a bit of an investment in terms of windows and new roof, new heating system. And then, of course, we have the partnerships that we have with our different institutions, including MCC, COOL, and so on. Sustainability. Again, we are I think, a leader in this area. It's something that we take quite a bit of pride in. I think the council, because of their leadership, should take quite a bit of pride in this as well. We received an award, a Leading by Example award. We were one of only 4 municipalities here in the Commonwealth. We do have that Better Buildings program that we talked about already. We have the Green Communities designation. We were one of the first communities, certainly one of the first major cities to receive this designation, and we're preparing to apply for a second grant in 2012. But we received $546,000 that has gone for energy efficiency initiatives here in the city because of our belief that sustainability is significant and important. The master plan also doubles as our sustainability plan. A key part of that master plan is, in fact, the sustainability as a goal here in the city. Further along those same areas, same category, we have residential energy efficiency loan program, completing lower cost opportunities for 1 to 4 family homes. We've leveraged $100,000 in funds to bring in $250,000 in private capital. We've assisted 54 residents and property owners. And then in our own wastewater, we've completed 3 sustainability projects of green roofs, rain gardens, and repaving with pervious materials. We organized the first Sustainability Week in the city. We partnered with UTEC on the first publicly accessible electric vehicle charging station. We've been working with NIMCOG on a green restaurants program, not only for ourselves, but for the region. And of course, we have the bus shelters, 12 to 14 sites that we spoke of earlier, that implementation is scheduled for later this year. Amoresco, and that's why we won, by the way, the Leading by Example Award was our Amoresco projects. Several projects have been completed or been made significant advancements. The City Hall boiler has been replaced, and I can tell you that doesn't it seem warmer in here now than it ever did before? And this summer, it will be cooler in here. That's all part of the Amoresco project. The solar installations in a number of facilities, we're looking, that wasn't accomplished this past year, but we finally have things cleared up at the landfill. We're putting a solar facility out there. We've done lighting and retrofits and controls in schools. We've done those in a number of areas. So again, all designed to save us money. Infrastructure. The focus on unaccepted streets, and you have another one that came before you tonight on Technology Drive. We're well within our goal of reducing the backlog by 30%. We've surpassed our goal for fiscal year 12 paving. We've already got 14,000 done, and we're only 6 months through the year. Obviously, we won't be seeing any in the next couple months, but in the spring, we expect with the additional Chapter 90 money that's coming our way that we'll be able to well exceed and provide better road surfaces for our citizens. We've made upgrades to the water treatment facility, and I won't read through all of those categories, but we've certainly made improvements in that, and you all know the improvements we've made in our wastewater and the elimination of the odor complaints and making that a much more effective facility here in the city. This is just a map, and you have it on your sheet. This just shows the infrastructure improvements, the various transportation projects that we currently have underway, including the trolley, including the river walk systems, the canal walk systems, the changes in traffic patterns and road conditions in the downtown area, and how it ties in with all of the various public or private investments that are taking place in the downtown area. Further in infrastructure, we've purchased that new snow equipment that I talked about, and you see a picture there. We have a bridge book being compiled that we have about 120, 130 bridges here in the city, but we never had any data on the condition of those bridges and what needed to be done. That is almost complete, and it will be used to have a comprehensive repair plan that will enable us to seek outside funding. We are synchronizing the traffic lights along Dutton Street, and so that is all part of that that master plan we're developing with traffic that I think will certainly be helpful to the people that are coming to visit the city, but certainly the residents of the city that use Dutton Street on a regular basis. Further in infrastructure, we have the wastewater utility. We've talked about that. It's about 90% of those upgrades have been completed. The odor control, the energy efficiency, the septic and hauled waste collection systems. We have some other projects moving forward that I'll be briefing the council on in the coming month. We have the JAM plan progressing with the Hamilton Canal Way, the Canal Street Bridge, the temporary parking lot next to the Freudenberg building has all been completed this year, working with the city and the private developers. In terms of infrastructure, the Riverwalk has been enhanced through improved lighting, landscaping, paving, and site furnishings. We have designed an extension during the past year, and that construction for that extension is planned for 2012. And of course, we have the Concord River Greenway. We've completed construction on Phase 1 and Phase 2 of that. And we've completed the construction plans and documents for the South Common Master Plan. You see a picture at the very bottom there of the existing conditions. And that, again, is an exciting project because it's an important gateway into the city. Further along for infrastructure, pedestrian improvements along Thorndike Street. We had a grant last year that took us from I believe it was roughly the Hamilton Canal site down to the train station. This past year, we extended it all the way up to Highland Ave. So it's important, again, an important gateway. We made a number of improvements to the City Hall area, both inside and outside. And of course, we initiated and completed the cobblestone and streetscape improvements that I know Councilman Donzer asked us about that some time ago for the downtown area out along Central Street. So again, those were all part of our infrastructure improvements. In terms of the FY13 process, 2012 FY13, what you have, what I just ran through very quickly, is the what we did for 2011 for goals and objectives, any council feedback that you may want to offer. In February, we're going to be having the department heads receiving their instructions for developing goals and objectives with budget instructions. In March, I anticipate the opportunity to meet with you again to discuss the goals that they set forth and get your input on how your goals tie in with that and direct us to so that we're all on the same page. And obviously, your goals are the most significant part of our planning process. In March and May, we'll be using that time to work with our departments to use those goals and objectives that you set forth to tie in with our budget so that we'll be ready to present that to you in June, our spending plan and how it all ties in with that strategic perspective. And then next December, we'll give you an update on that, and of course, quarterly or updates on that as we go along. I apologize for going through it so quickly, but I hope you appreciate that I went through it so quickly as well. So,
Thank you, Mr. Manager, for the abridged version.
thank you.
Any discussion? Councilman Donza.
Yes, there are obviously many accomplishments here, and there's just one area that was important to me that I'd like to comment on, and that is in the infrastructure and the unaccepted streets. And to be honest, I mean, a lot more has been done during the last year than I recall being done in the past, so many more have been accepted during the past year. However, I just want to make sure that even though it says 30% of the backlog, actually, I believe it was 30% of the streets that were listed in the goals, not 30% of all unaccepted streets. The streets listed, I believe there are about 28 of them, and that's only actually in itself only a small fraction of unaccepted streets, so we still have a ways to go.
We do.
And I did, my expectation when we set these goals is that those 28 streets would be done, or near 100% of them, not 30%. So although I'm very pleased with everything that has been accomplished, that's the one area that I could pick at. So I'm doing it in the sense only to say that it's still very important to me, and going forward, I think we still need to do more in that, so that maybe over the course of 20 years, we can eliminate this backlog. It's certainly important to people who use the streets or live on them. So I personally see it as a continuing goal to work this list down. And even at 28, I'd like to see that done to 100% as soon as we can, maybe within the next year anyway. So thank you.
Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the short version, Mr. Manager. At this point, I would like to make a motion to refer this to, I guess, maybe the Personnel Subcommittee for further discussion for the council to be able to come up with our goals and objectives. The manager's going to be meeting with department heads in February. Perhaps we could meet once or twice in February and be prepared and for some get together in March to move forward with this, if that makes sense.
Motion to refer the presentation to the subcommittee by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Mendonça. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Motion to accept the communication and place it on file by Councilor Murcia, seconded by Councilor Mendonça. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next we have, and thank you also to Kendra Amaral, Michael Herbert, and Adam Bakey for their contributions to the report. Next, we have a communication from the city manager regarding zoning amendment for adult establishments. A motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Laurie, seconded by Councilor Martin. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. I'd be looking for a motion to refer this to a public hearing on February 14th with the other ordinance. Motion by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Martin. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next, we have subcommittee reports. Open it up to Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you know, the Rules Committee met prior to this, to tonight's meeting in order to consider the motion that was referred to them by the full city council, and I'll have a full report at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Any, Councilor Laurie?
There's going to be a public hearing for the transportation at 5:30 on the 7th of February concerning some of the things we discussed in the past, the signs, no parking signs, the situation on Central and Lawrence Street, and we'll address them beginning on the 7th.
All right, so we have a transportation subcommittee meeting on the 7th of February at 5:30.
5:30.
Any other? Councilman Donza.
Just so people can mark it in the calendar, I did schedule a finance subcommittee meeting for February 21st.
Okay.
There was the quarterly report forwarded to it. If there's anything else in time for proper notice to be given, we'll take that up as well if we can.
Also at 5:30?
At 5:30, yes.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay. Please, go ahead and report. Moving on then to the wire inspector. We have a report of National Grid for 11 through 17 Ward Avenue to extend the gas main. Motion to accept and adopt by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Mercia. Any discussion?
No.
Then all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next, we have under general petitions, one claim for personal injury.
Refer it to the law department.
Motion by Councilor Mercia, seconded by Councilor Laurie to refer this to the law department.
For report and recommendation.
For report and recommendation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Moving on to the motions portion of the agenda. We have the first motion by Councilor Laurie. Request the City Council refer to Education Partnership Subcommittee regarding UMass Lowell projects. Seconded by Councilor Mendonça. Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion is to have the Education Partnership Subcommittee meet February 14th at 5:30 here in the chamber. Chancellor Meehan wants to address the subcommittee on some of the projects going on at the university, the Emerging Technology Building, the garage on North Campus, I believe on Riverside Street, and I think they have a new management school, graduate school, but the Chancellor does want to come down and address the subcommittee. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next, we have a motion by Councilor Elliott. City Council requests City Manager have the Department of Environmental Protection report on the handling of asbestos during the LHA renovations.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Kennedy. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, this is a serious public health issue. Asbestos was banned in the 80s and 1980s because it causes cancer and mesothelioma in people who are exposed to it. I have received reports on the presence of asbestos-containing materials and removal of those materials in the units at North Common Village. I also listened to the former building commissioner on the radio, who raised awareness to the fact that he wasn't aware of any asbestos abatement testing or any other documents that were submitted to the office. And I would like to know why.
Said.
So, no, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry. But to me, the law is clear. Mass Code of Regulations 310, Section 715, lays out the criteria for what has to be done for the removal of asbestos to protect workers, air quality, and most importantly, the residents, the public. Asbestos is regulated by many agencies, but most importantly, DEP. OSHA gets involved when it relates to workers. There's specific training that has to be done. There is protocol for removal of asbestos. Now, I understand there was some information on our desk tonight, dated today, from the Housing Authority. And this relates to the boiler replacement back in '89 when, I guess, the Executive Director, Michael McLaughlin, was there. That's not what my concern is. My concern is the 132 units that were rehabbed. Asbestos is in many products. It's contained in the tile floors, of course, pipe insulation, wallboard, ceiling tiles. There's quite a list of products that it is contained in. So, Mr. Manager, the reason I filed this motion is to have you go to the DEP, because I want to know if proper forms were filed, were proper procedures followed, because there's a very specific notification process on the removal and demolition. We know that the demolition was done down to the studs. But I do want to know if proper notification procedures were followed for these units in informing DEP of the work. And were the workers trained? Were they properly equipped with the proper attire? Given the age of these buildings, Mr. Manager, I believe it's incumbent on the city to contact DEP and request any reports on asbestos relative to this project to ensure that the public health was not compromised. Considering the way this project has been mishandled and the fact there's been lack of communication, lack of oversight, lack of permits pulled, lack of inspections done, I want to know what's in these units and validate what hazards were in these units, where the waste went and how it was disposed of, who disposed of it, was it contracted, and was it signed off on the other end. Considering the history of this project and how we were told there were no code violations in the work that was done, only to find out there were numerous code violations, I think it's vital we get an independent certification or reports from the DEP on asbestos. I think that's all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any discussion?
Yeah.
Councilor Kennedy.
So you're going to provide a report? Is that the motion? To have the city manager get a report from the Department of Environmental Protection?
Correct. Mr. Manager.
If I could, just to, in response to that, just a couple of points. Obviously, I can't force the Department of Environmental Protection to give us anything. I do know that they have been out to the site, we've been in communication with them. The issue of asbestos is not something that falls within the jurisdiction of the city, but we have been in touch with the Lowell Housing Authority to ask for any information they have based upon the accusations that have been made. And the document that you have in front of you is what as they indicated, is what they were able to find in their storage facility related to the boilers. They're seeing what other information they have available regarding asbestos abatement that took place at those properties. We do have information, and we're waiting for the written report on this, but they did, we suggested, and they agreed that they had a Mill City Environmental on site today conducting asbestos analysis in units that have not been rehabilitated. And because it would certainly assume that if they hadn't been rehabbed, we'd be able to see what asbestos was there. There is no asbestos in those units. So by indication or the accusation that there was illegal disposal of asbestos or treatment of asbestos doesn't seem to be the case, given they haven't found asbestos in any of the units that haven't been rehabbed. And they believe that much of that abatement did take place at an earlier time. But again, the Department of Environmental Protection has been out there, and we'll be in touch with them to see what type of report they can give us, if any.
Well, Councilor Kennedy.
If there's no objection from Councilor Elliott, if I could just add to his motion that in addition to being in touch with the Department of Environmental Protection and getting whatever information you can get from them, it would be probably prudent to try to get the same to find out from the Executive Director of the Housing Authority whether or not they spent any money on asbestos removal, and if they did, how much, and who did the work. I mean, I'm assuming they didn't do that in-house, so it would have been done by some outside company, and I'm then assuming that those people would have used the proper equipment and clothing and so forth and done it in a responsible way. But this is, this issue just keeps on going on, and I heard a portion of the radio program that Councilor Elliott is talking about last Saturday, and for stuff like this, it's just better if you can just end it and bring it to a conclusion, and the best way to do that is find out exactly what happened. So although the Department of Environmental Protection may not be responsive to you, I would assume that the Lowell Housing Authority would be responsive to you, and then they'd be on the record as to whether there was asbestos, whether or not they spent money and who they spent it with, and so forth. So if Councilor Elliott has no objection, I'd like to just attach that on to his request.
Mr. Manager.
Councilor, I think we can certainly do that. I do agree that that's probably the simplest way to do this. And I couldn't agree with you more that it seems that this doesn't, it just continues and continues. And, I have no doubt that, I know I think there's another motion on here regarding lead paint. And those, we do have reports that all those units were abated several, 20 or so years ago. There was no lead in those units. That was another accusation that was made by the former building commissioner, the concern that sort of implied that was the case. But the reality is that those had been. But we can get a written document, I'm sure, from the housing director that with regards to the asbestos, but by all indications, there was not any asbestos in these units. But we will see if they can just put that in writing to us and be done with that. The sooner this can be over, the better. But it seems, again, I think that it's in some people's interest to prolong this.
I would agree with that, but I don't include Councilor Elliott in that group. I think it's absolutely proper for him to do that. This is just something that's on the street and on the radio, and there's people just keep on talking about it. I've heard about it for a couple of months. I heard about the asbestos back in November. So I think this is a good motion. I just think it's good to get to the bottom of it.
Any further discussion on the motion? Councilman Donta.
Well, I know we've got this report on our desk this evening. Has anyone reviewed it to see what its conclusion is, or is that something we could get, or is this the answer to Councilor Kennedy's amendment?
No, it's not the, we'll get a different, that was the first Councilor Kennedy made that motion, so or that amendment, so we'll handle it as something new. This was just, it was out there, when this claim was made by, accusation was made by the former building commissioner, that, we wanted to, again, to quell any public fears and find out for ourselves what they had for information. And they provided us with this information, and they're looking for more information relative to asbestos. The lead is pretty clear that there wasn't any lead at those apartments.
Well, I mean, this is all about asbestos. There's a different document for de-leading.
Right. And
it seems to be a lot of documentation of work that was done in the 80s.
Correct.
To get rid of the asbestos. I don't see basically a conclusion that says all asbestos was removed.
Not in this, correct.
Not in this, so it seems to imply that just by the sheer thickness of it. But I see that my colleagues' requests would be in order to just get a definitive statement.
Mm-hmm.
Either it's all gone or there's still some units that have it.
Right.
Again, so we could end the discussion or have it on record of what the case is right now.
Right. And again, what we do know is that from the report that we received today is that, they've done asbestos, they've looked for asbestos in rehab units, and there isn't any, but that doesn't tell us much, because if there was, as the claim made, that or the
It was removed.
suspicion.
It was the suspicion that it was
there
removed.
may be asbestos
as
there.
part of the renovation.
So that would have been removed. So we went back and we said, okay, let's look at a unit that hasn't been rehabbed and see, let's find all the asbestos in that unit. And there isn't any. So certainly by all indications, there wasn't any asbestos in these units. But we'll do follow-up with that. And as I said, the Department of Environmental Protection, it has been out, is on site.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager. Mr. Manager, what role is the present inspectional service director playing in this? I never see him come forward in an attempt to probably answer the questions. We have we have a commissioner, right?
We do.
But I never see him here, and I never see him asking,
Well, we refer these issues to him, and I can certainly bring him in, but there hasn't been any need to bring him in. I know that, again, that was a claim or a question raised by the former commissioner on the radio, and I'm not quite sure why I never had the former commissioner come to any meetings either. And so I found it odd that he's wondering about that, but we can certainly have him here if there's questions related to that. But mostly what's going on out there right now is, the inspections are taking place by the commissioner and his staff, but they all fall under the purview of the deputy director, and she's been at almost every one of these meetings and been providing the reports, and she's the lead contact with the Inspector General's office, the Department of Environmental Protection now, the HUD, every organization that we're dealing with is running through that.
And is it possible we could have an update on the certification of the people that are in inspectional service?
They're all still operating under the approval of the state. They're all still approved by the state. They haven't lost that.
They haven't lost their approval by the state, but are they aiming to get certification?
Yes.
And we will know when that happens?
Yes, you will.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, I know you want this problem to go away, but it has to go away in the proper manner. This whole discussion, we've only learned about this for the last 3 months, Mr. Manager. You've known about it for years. So to say that we've received, a packet of information and that there is no asbestos, first of all, there are rules and there are procedures. Maybe, do you know the law? Have you looked at the law, Mr. Manager? I have not. Okay, well, there are notification, including, you're supposed to notify 10 days in advance to the Department of Environmental Protection.
If you're
And provide the
if you're touching-
notification
if
to
you're
them.
touching asbestos.
I let you speak. Can I speak, Mr. Manager? Whether you're going to do any demolition, any construction, anything at all whatsoever, there has to be a survey, there has to be testing. There is a protocol, and there's a reason why there's a protocol to be done beforehand, so exactly what took place this time won't take place again. Most materials, this construction project was done in 1939. I mean, maybe there has been some amendments, I don't know, I doubt it, but to make sure that there is no asbestos in the tiles, the floor tiles, ceiling, wallboard, joint compound, it's done beforehand. So you did a test today. Did you notify the DEP that that was taking place today? Have you spoken to anybody at DEP? Why wouldn't you? Why? I don't understand why you wouldn't pick up the phone considering the significance of this. Because I have spoken, I have been called by ranking officials at DEP asking me, and they knew nothing about this. So when you sit here and say the DEP knows all about this, DEP doesn't know all about this. They know about it now. So I don't understand your statements that, this is all set and there's nothing in. Of course, when you take all the debris out, I mean, are you asking these questions? Why, first of all, they didn't pull building permits. Part of the building permit process includes the abatement protocol and notify. There's not one notification. There's no notification of construction projects in the database that's online to the public. I will say there's hundreds of others in this community, from private homeowners to businesses, the hospital, and Mr. Manager, even the city. So when we say that everything was done above, I don't think anything was done above board. And that's why I brought it forward. Same thing with my next motion. Do I want to bring this up? I want to make sure that people are held accountable for what was taking place and what will take place. I mean, a motion a month ago on contracts. You can't get me the contracts. Nobody knows who's paying for this, who did the work, in-house, forced labor. It's a joke. And I want to get to the bottom of it and move on to other important things in this city, as well as everybody else. But there's a way to do it, and there's a right way to do it, and to go to the proper authorities to make sure that we're getting the correct information. You said there's no lead. I mean, I didn't read through this, but this looks like just 5 apartments, unless there's some other information forthcoming. That's how I didn't get it. Of course, it was just on our desk tonight. And if there is more forthcoming information, great. But the letter also reads, they're going to take samples from the walls and floors as deemed necessary. I mean, why wasn't DEP called in? I mean, you said they were. Were they there today? Were they on site participating with this?
My understanding, they were up, yes.
Well, who was it? Can you give me that information so we know?
We'll get you that information.
Any further discussion on the motion? All those in, Councilor Laurie.
Thank you. I just have one question, and I'm sitting here listening to these are important questions. Do we have oversight over there? I know this is public. I know we have to pull permits. We have inspectors. But who has the actual oversight at the LHA? Is it us? Is it their board?
It's the board.
What are we doing with it? I know these are important questions, and if these problems exist, they have to be done, and there's no question about it. But is it our oversight, or is it their oversight?
I would say that it's their oversight. They're a separate legal entity. I appoint the members of the board, but after that, they're a separate legal entity.
I'm not downplaying these questions. They're very important. Asbestos, lead paint, and these programs have to, as Councilor Elliott says, they have to be done. They have to be done properly. And they have to be done, and they have to be held accountable. But that was my only question, as I sit here and listen, who really has oversight? Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councilor Kennedy and then Councilor Elliott.
Councilor Rowley can go first.
I just want to say, that's not completely true. The city has responsibility for inspections, Mr. Manager.
That's
A
correct.
building permit cannot be issued unless there are, all of these issues are addressed. Asbestos and lead are part of that permit.
I don't believe they are, Councilor.
Well, you know, Council Mercy has a good question. Can we get the building commissioner here so we can answer those questions with the proper authority? Because last week you said you didn't know anything about the building code, understandably so. So have the proper authority here, because it is the city's responsibility. Yeah, the housing authority is doing the work, but we have the oversight to ensure that compliance and inspections are being done. So I don't agree with you. Both of us have responsibility. We have the inspectional authority, and that's where this falls under.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I think that the responsibility for the asbestos and the lead probably lies with the Commonwealth, more than with the city. But just in response to Councilor Laurie's remarks, the oversight for the project would have belonged to the Housing Authority. But if it was done in a slipshod manner and it wasn't done the way it was supposed to be, then we would have, or we should have a responsibility to the people who are living in the project. And so that's why I think these are important questions.
Councilor Laurie.
No, I just want to thank Councilor Kennedy. I wasn't downplaying the questions. I even said that lead paint and asbestos. And I was just having a question on oversight. I know eventually, ultimately, we do have probably the oversight, but just the day-to-day good, you know. I want to thank Councilor Kennedy. He answered the question. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next, under the Housing Authority portion of the agenda, we have Councilor Elliott's motion. City Council requests City Manager have the proper state or federal agency report on handling of lead paint during the LHA renovations. Seconded by Councilor Kennedy. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Along the same lines, lead is just as troubling, and there's a reason why there are many agencies that regulate lead and lead abatement, and why funding is available. I did see, even in a couple of the apartments that were done, lead was found. Work was done, scraping, replacement on door casings, jams, basement. This is in one apartment. I don't think it was at North Common Village. Risers, handrails, newel posts, lower rails. It just underscores the importance of getting reports from a proper authority to authorities to ensure that if work is done, or was work done, or was notification provided, lead is, it's a serious health concern as well, especially for children. It causes extreme developmental delays in children, and if, you know, this whole demolition process, and it's particularly, it's the dust. So I've spoken the prior motion and this motion, so I don't need to elaborate. It's very similar discussion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next motion by Councilor Noon. City Council requests City Manager report on policy with respect to city receiving cash payments. Seconded by Councilor Mercia. Councilor Noon.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to, the manager can report on the cash policy with regard to the city, what kind of receipt they get. Suppose they go to the treasurer department and or the clerk office, will they get a different type of receipt, say signify which department they pay to? So if you could get that report, I'd be grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We were together on a program this morning with a a funeral director that had a receipt from the clerk's office, and it looked like something that I could have made up. It didn't indicate that it was from the clerk's office. It didn't indicate that it was from the city hall. It didn't have any specific identity to the fact that I paid this much money at the city hall. I don't know how it's numerically in order. I don't know if he was the 52nd thousandth person to have gotten a receipt. I don't know that that's a good business practice. I remember many years ago, before you were here, Mr. Manager, there was Powers and Sullivan came in, and I guess it was a question of the police ticketing. And when they looked at it, they said, there's no numerical numbers, none of this, there's no numbers here, so that we have no way to know that 32, 33, 34, one is missing. Where is that missing one? So I don't know if we're following that same order in the clerk's office. Is it in numerical order? I think it should be a little bit more defined to know that Mary paid a bill and the city gave her a receipt with the logo or something that said it came from City Hall. I think it should be appropriate. I think we should be professional in that respect.
Mr. Manager.
Counselor, I've seen that, I've met with that same funeral director a few months ago, and he showed me that same receipt. But perhaps Ms. Wright would like to speak on this.
Absolutely. We now have all the cash receipts numbered. They do not say City of Lowell on it because we have duplicate cash receipts. You buy them, they register the number sequence with me. And what I'm doing is when I audit, as a matter of fact, I audited January 18th today, I go through all their receipts, put them in order, make sure all the receipts are in order, that all the money's in place. So they will have a cash receipt, but there will be a cash receipt number on it. It will not say City of Lowell, because to be honest with you, to have like duplicate and triplicate cash receipts made up for a packet of 100 would be almost $70 if they each said City of Lowell. But they're numerically sequenced, they're registered in my office, and they're checked on a monthly basis. So it won't say City of Lowell, but it will be numbered, and it should say whether it was a burial permit or whatever it
Councilor
was
Mercia.
in the name.
When you time stamp something, does it say City of Lowell or just the time?
It depends on the timestamp that you have.
Well, what does the one in the clerk's office say when you?
It says received City of Lowell.
Well, then why can't you put that receipt after they pay it in that timestamp and get the City of Lowell sealed wording on that?
Counselor, that's a wonderful idea.
That's what we should do. That should be the policy then. Thank you.
I just want to echo Councilor Mercia that if you cannot have receipt that indicated that paid to City of Lowell, you at least have a stamp that say paid to the City of Lowell, so that the receipt not only the sequence numbers that you have assigned to it, but also say paid to, and that's important. That people come here and pay, and also for you to really go through it in a very professional way, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further? Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. Madam Auditor, what happens when there's an overage or an underage in an individual's drawer? How is that reconciled if you do it on a monthly basis?
What's happening right now is every time, every day that there's an overage or underage, I'm requesting a memo from the department. We're working with the new treasurer to set up new drawers for each and every individual that's taking in cash. So they will be responsible for their own draws. Okay, so obviously the first time you get a warning, and then we have to figure out progressively what we're going to do with the individuals. But if you
Why does that happen? I mean, on a daily basis, say someone's drawer is off, I mean, what do you do on that day? Does the treasurer address it? I mean, I understand a note, and
Correct.
et cetera, but how do you start the next day with the drawer? You're gonna start it with an
It's
underage
whatever-
or overage?
It's whatever is in that draw. That way we keep track of on an ongoing basis, but we have to decide what we're gonna do.
Is that what other communities do? They just, the people own their drawers, their own?
In most communities, yes.
Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, just
Councilor
one-
Kennedy.
Does that happen a lot? Are there, the draws off a lot?
I think I'm gonna say in the city clerk's office in the past, well, since we've actually instituted this, it might have been off 4 days. People getting sloppy, giving the wrong change back.
4 days in how much time? 2 months, 3 months?
No, it's since July of last year.
Okay.
I mean, I can go, actually, I keep a 3-ring binder with all the receipts for the weeks and all that stuff.
No,
and
I
keep
just,
all that
I was just
documentation.
curious that, how often that occurred, that's all.
It doesn't occur that often.
Yeah.
Any further discussion on the motion? All those in
Well,
favor?
can I-
Excuse me, yep.
So,
Councilor
4
Martin.
days, but how much? You know,
One day was $10 over, one day was $10 under.
right, if someone gives me a 20 and I'm supposed to give them $10
supposed to be
back,
10,
and I give
exactly.
them 2 10s, and so they get it for free, and the next day, I may, that people aren't perfect, right? I mean,
People are people.
right,
people
I mean,
and
if you've
everybody
ever
tries to do the
worked
right
at
thing.
a cash register, sometimes you give back the wrong change.
Correct.
It happens, okay.
The thing is, we know when it happens now. We don't know how sometimes.
Right,
But we
but,
know when it happens, and that's a giant leap forward.
and at least since you've been tracking it in the clerk's office, it's a small amount of money.
Exactly.
$10 here,
One way, the other way.
on a
Just
total of 4
people
days.
being- Right.
Okay.
I'd like to buy something from you, Counselor. Counselor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. How many departments accept cash, and does every department turn it in every day?
We,
Like, I'm sure some departments, like
Cash
the
receipt
clerk's
policy.
office and treasurer, there are those that have large amounts of receipts.
if they collect $200 to $500, we want them to deposit it on that day.
What about
But if not-
building and planning and development?
Planning and development, when they get cash, they usually get big cash and big checks in.
Checks, right.
Yeah, so they mostly deal with checks.
Right.
Most departments just deal with checks. There's not that much cash.
Right.
It'd be the school department, school lunches and things like that.
And do
City
they,
clerk is like the number one with
Right.
just regular on a daily basis cash.
and what does the school do? Do they make a daily, I mean,
They make numerous deposits per day
right,
because
okay,
each school.
does their own, okay. Thank you, again.
Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next motion by Mayor Murphy and Councilor Mendonça. City Council requests city manager report on potential for consolidation into a single work order system for both school and municipal facilities. Councilor Mendonça.
Yes, obviously, this is just what in business is workflow review. You look at what steps taken to get something done and try to eliminate duplicative steps in the hopes of improving efficiency and general performance. I remember from the school, being on a school committee, that at one time, they didn't have a robust system in DPD. And so the schools tried to track their own, built their own system to do that. Even though they eventually, all of these work requests get sent on to DPW in order to get the work done. And now, as the manager stated in his presentation, the DPW has a new work order system that's better at keeping track and prioritizing what goes on. So it's time to look at consolidating the two in order to make it more efficient, make sure fewer things drop through the cracks, and hopefully things will get done in a more timely fashion as the school department needs it done. I believe that's the intent of the motion.
Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved by Councilor Kennedy, seconded by Councilor Broderick. We stand adjourned.
I can't.